Attack on Titan is probably one of the most popular medias of our century. Regardless if you're into anime or not, a lot of people find themselves enjoying this series. Its high-stakes story, compelling characters, and overarching themes is usually enough to draw most viewers in. It's a series that definitely altered my brain chemistry in 2017, and since then, doomed me to forever obsess over a sapphic couple who will never get their happy ending. But anyways, Attack on Titan the manga came out on September 9th, 2009, and Attack on Titan the anime came out in April 2013, which was the year where the series really took off. Back in this specific time period, there was a particular genre that had the world in chokehold. The 2010s really had audiences captured by this dystopian apocalyptic vibe. People were eating up this particular genre in any form they could get it. Everyone and their mother was obsessed with some sort of media that had this dark, edgy vibe that was similar to our own world but had a fantasy or sci-fi twist. Whether it be The Hunger Games, The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, or Ender's Game, someone you know was probably a fan. Consumers were hooked on zombie and dystopian media. There was a certain appeal to these fictional worlds where people could imagine themselves in life-threatening scenarios and put their non-existent survival skills to the test. I think the stars were really aligned at the time because Attack on Titan easily slotted itself in with the rest of these franchises, and it was easy for a lot of people who weren't even into anime to get into the series. The plot revolved around what was presumably the last of humanity, protected behind large walls from massive humanoid monsters known as Titans. The show has had a major significance on the Western anime community and influenced otaku culture as a whole. You see, the show grew in popularity before it was even considered to have a dub, and its audience grew in size when the dub finally did come out a year later. This sort of gateway allowed a lot of people to get into other anime and explore their taste. During the Season 1 era, the Attack on Titan fandom exploded. It was one of the most active fandoms on the internet to date and one of the biggest. At the time, it was actually hard to scroll through the internet without encountering a reference to the show. People were obsessed, and they were not afraid to share their passion for the franchise. That being said, as expected, the fandom had its oddballs, and like any other natural growth of a fandom, it had its shipping. The Attack on Titan fandom is one of the most commonly brought up fandoms when it comes to shipping, with the community being a lot of people's first encounter with the subject and also contributing to the change of shipping culture. It's a prime example of what fandom could be like and also not be like. During this particular era of the fandom, around 2013-2014, there was one specific ship that had a lot of people in a chokehold, and that was Eren x Levi. It was one of the most dominant ships at the time, and I want to explore why that was. So let's get into it and discover, why do people ship Eren and Levi?
Yeah, stop. Again. Stop. Oh, baby. Stop. Stop.
Captain, Eren's enjoying it.
Eren, stop enjoying it. More. Yeah.
Eren!
Number 1. Levi and Eren are the most popular characters in the franchise. It's honestly a fact that can't really be debated. From just looking at a tagging system on social media and character polls, these two dominate. They're fan favorites for a lot of people because of who they are as individuals. And even just with applying the knowledge that people had back in 2013 and 2014, Eren and Levi were still compelling characters at the start of the series. Considering he was the main character of the story, people could easily attach themselves to Eren. His personality and goals are simple to understand.
エレンどうしたのエレンエレン
駆逐してやる。この世から一匹残らず。
His passionate and crazed attitude in the cruel world he lived in made him very likable to many fans. He also had plenty of sympathetic elements to his character, such as being someone who lost their parents at a young age. Because of this, it made it easier to feel his losses and tragedies, leading to a lot of people rooting for him. He was your classic underdog protagonist with a stubborn but passionate spirit. Also, he was batshit insane with Titan powers that he probably shouldn't have had, but people loved him for that. Levi, who is arguably one of the most popular characters in anime in general, also had a specific allure to him that made him well liked. His brooding, reserved, but sharp personality alongside his battle skills was a perfect recipe for people to either romanticize or idolize him. It was clear he had a lot more going on beneath the surface, and people were able to project ideas of what that might be when following his character. His attentiveness, along with his quirky cleaning habits and conventional attractiveness, allowed people to latch onto these attributes. The popularity of these characters did not go unnoticed, as Wit Studio, who was responsible for the anime at the time, was quick to market these two as much as they could. Whether it be official art, merchandise, magazines, or advertisements, Eren and Levi were usually found together or not far apart. They were, and still are, the cash cow for this franchise, and because of that, fans of the ship had a copious amount of content that they could thrive off of. Number 2. Commonly in fandom, the way people interpret media can usually be reflected by the way they express their passion. There's a lot of cases where the eye of the beholder plays a big role in the way people attach themselves to certain characters. Because of that, it can lead to a lot of projection of one's desires or ideals, and that can bleed into the way they see a character. Something like this can also play a big part in shipping, and Eren x Levi was a prime example of this bias at the time. The term shipping goggles is used within fandom to describe shippers who view canon material in a biased lens and perceive certain elements of a media in a way to prove their ship. This can run adjacent with the eye of beholder effect, and it's very much of a common case with Eren x Levi shippers. Because of the way these shippers viewed certain scenes of the show, and their bias allowing them to recontextualize canon material, in their eyes they had evidence of their ship potentially being canon. With only the context of season 1, the show establishes a mentor-mentee dynamic between these two characters. Before they even meet, Eren is shown to have a strong admiration towards the scouts and idolizes the members. To Eren, Levi is the embodiment of everything he respects: freedom from the outer walls, hatred of titans, and defining his own fate. Eren's idolization of Levi could be enough of a reason for shippers to start pairing them together. And as the plot progresses and the characters finally meet, in a scene where Eren is taken into the military police's custody after the discovery of his titan powers, Commander Irvin and Levi visit Eren in his jail cell. There they hold a conversation about what are Eren's intentions with his power, and Eren answers rather passionately.
I want to become a member of the Scouts and slaughter every Titan that crosses my path.
And because of this emotional outburst, Levi allows Eren to join the Scouts, giving a reaction that shippers interpreted as Levi being charmed and seeing something he likes in Eren. Eren being taken into the Scouts' custody starts an arc where I think the idea of Eren x Levi was formed for a lot of shippers. Over the course of a month, Eren gets to know each Scout member individually as they learn to control his Titan powers. Because Attack on Titan, the anime, had gone on hiatus for 4 years after season 1 came out, it left fans to sit with the season 1 versions of these characters. People were able to expand on these characters through their own fanon, revisiting canon material and recontextualizing the scenes as they saw fit. It was a sort of logic that allowed shippers to construct narratives where the characters could fit into a mold that the shipper found the most appealing. Number 3. Speaking of fitting a character into a mold that one finds most appealing, it's time to bring up a particular subculture in fandom that influenced the popularity of Eren x Levi. And while the subject matter could be a video of its own, I'm going to try to compact it into more of a sample size to get my point across. In the anime corner of the internet, there's a specific term for a special kind of fan: fujoshi. The word was first used around the beginning of the 2000s on the online message board 2chan. It eventually became coined in online anime and gaming fan communities as time went on. The word was used to label female fans who regularly consumed and expressed their love for male-on-male content, or as anime fans would put it, yaoi. And while the origin comes from Japan, the word made its reach throughout several communities in other parts of the world. In the early 2010s, fujoshi culture was starting to reach a significant peak as anime continued to grow in popularity in the West. And because of the growing accessibility of the internet in general, there were a lot of young girls and women who started to stumble across the yaoi genre when they searched up their favorite anime characters. It was a rabbit hole that a lot of these otakus found themselves falling through as they started either the next stage of their life or discovering their sexualities. While there's much to explore when looking into yaoi and fujoshi culture, to keep it short, the popularity of this genre happened to run adjacent with Attack on Titan's popularity. Eren and Levi were easy projections for fujoshi fans, as with only the context of season 1, they were relatively flexible characters to work with. They were two characters that were easy to place in very popular dynamics seen often in the yaoi genre, including the very common top-bottom dynamic. There was also a layer to the pairing where those who were really attracted to Levi could project themselves onto Eren. In a way, it was definitely a form of exploration of sexuality for most, and because Attack on Titan was their special interest or hyperfixation, it was easy for fans to find security in their ship as they learned more about themselves. Regardless, because of the rise of yaoi and Attack on Titan happening around the same time, it was one of the reasons why the ship became extremely popular. Now to address the elephant in the room. The age gap between Eren and Levi has always been a major controversy during the lifespan of the ship. In season 1, Eren is 15 years old and Levi has been stated to be 30 or even older in interviews. Obviously, this is not okay and extremely problematic for multiple reasons. While I assume the majority of Eren and Levi shippers at the time were young teen girls, there were still older fans who knew better and still encouraged the ship and shipped it. I generally find it surprising how the ship had unwavering loyalty at the time, but then again, it was the early 2010s and the way fandom was perceived was a lot different than how it's viewed today. I definitely think the internet is better at calling out problematic dynamics like this, and people are more vigilant with the sort of ships they allow into their spaces. Shipper or not, I think Eren and Levi are very fun characters to follow from start to finish, and they play important roles in the franchise for multiple reasons. Their significance in early 2010s culture is an interesting study, and I'm sure there's a lot for people to say who participated around that time. Attack on Titan has been an incredibly impactful franchise and will continue to be so for years to come. It's a well-loved story by many, and it's a wonderful watch regardless of feelings on the finale or disagreements with how certain storylines went. I'm sure a casual viewer can find a favorite character in the series or simply find themselves well invested in the story. While the Attack on Titan fandom has changed over time, I still think there's parts of it that have remained consistent from the start, including its shipping culture. That being said, I do think new fans can find their preferred spaces and have a great time discussing the show with either other new fans or older fans. Eren x Levi isn't as popular as it was back then, but it still had a big impact on the Attack on Titan fandom. I'm sure you could find some interesting stories from older fans when asking about the pairing. That being said, shipping can be a wonderful and also a weird thing, and this ship is just one of the many oddities out there.